Showtime, a-holes. Oh, wow, what a different start. I'm just dressed as Star-Lord, and I'm staying in character here. I think my mic might have been a little muted there to start it, but it was a Star-Lord quote. I wasn't just being rude. Phase Zero, Season 3, Episode 44 starts now. I'm Brandon Davis, joined today by Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody. It is not the same without a very long, prolonged Phase Zero. It doesn't feel the same.
I'm telling you, it's I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry. Liam Crowley's here.
Just when we think we know the answers, they change the questions. What a report just 45 minutes ago.
My goodness gracious. Aaron Perrine is here.
Unexpected giant show, followed by another giant show, followed by another giant show. Dare I say we're in a time loop, BD?
The more things change, I think they're just changing. They don't stay the same. Listen, happy Halloween. I hope everybody had a good Halloween. I went to bed last night after Halloween. Listen, I had a good time. I was like, I'm going to get up. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to have it's going to be an easy day on Phase Zero. We got good stuff to talk about. We had a show planned. I finally did the whole rundown finalized the rundown a little over an hour ago. We had Peter make a bunch of images. And then, the world had different plans. We have a lot to talk about today. A lot of Marvel news just dropped. We're going to talk about everything that just came out about the original Avengers possibly returning, about Blade, Jonathan Majors, and Kang's future. A lot of things changing at Marvel Studios. But first, I want to thank everybody because for the 4th week in a row, 4 weeks in a row, Phase Zero has broken its single-day downloads record for the year. I appreciate that. We're having a good time with the Loki stuff. We're having a good time on our Wednesday show. And we have a huge couple of weeks coming up. We have today's show, which is going to cover a lot of big news. We got a chonky chunk. I mean, this is like if a chonky show ate a chonky show. This is a big boy today. Yeah. But then tomorrow, November 2nd, we have Loki episode 5 breakdown live immediately after the episode ends. So when it drops at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Disney Plus, you hit play and then you come over to our YouTube channel where we will be recording live. And then the show goes up on all major podcast platforms. And then on November 3rd, I can't say what it is, but if things go to plan, which I have no reason to believe they're not going to, we have a bonus episode you're not going to want to miss. That's going to be right about noon Eastern time, I think. Big, awesome episode that I am very personally looking forward to doing here on Phase Zero on Friday. And then again, we're back on Wednesday, November 8th for our regular show. Who knows what news we're going to be tackling that day? I can't wait to get into today's news, so I'm going to wrap this whole spiel up. On November 9th, we have the Loki finale on Thursday night. And on November 10th, we have The Marvels episode. This is crazy. What a time to be alive. The MCU is about to chalk up wins, and it sounds like they're back there behind the curtain trying to figure out how to chalk up wins if the Variety article that just came out this morning is any indication. Things are changing, including Marvel Studios floating the idea of bringing the original 6 Avengers back. So everybody has a bullet point here. This one's mine from the Variety article. Thank you to Jenna and Aaron and Liam who went into the rundown and kind of broke this up into how we're going to talk about this. I'm going to take this one. So this is what Variety says. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. This would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, both of whom were killed off in Endgame. But the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea, And if it were able to bring those actors back, it wouldn't be cheap. Obviously, sources say Robert Downey Jr.'s upfront salary for Iron Man 3 was around $25 million. And if you read MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, you will know that Downey negotiated a percentage of ticket sales into his deals. I think that was definitely for the Avengers movie. And I would assume that carried over into Iron Man 3. And I don't know if that carried over into Infinity War and Endgame. But if it did, a dump truck full of money doesn't describe the amount of cash in that guy's pocket. But he had the MCU on his back, so you got to pay him for it. That said, bringing the original 6 Avengers back is not a super crazy idea because this happens in comics all the time. I am of the belief Tony had a perfect ending. I'm also of the belief I'm buying a ticket on day one if Downey is back as Iron Man. I don't care if he's just in the background sneezing. I love that character. So how are we feeling about this news?
I will also say with the whole thing of the dump truck of money, that was all for pre-Oppenheimer Robert Downey Jr. I feel like now he has the opportunity to pick any project he wants, like even more so than before. And so bringing him back, I definitely think it could happen. Like we talked about it with Joanna on last week's show, but I think it would cost a lot to be able to really make it happen.
I mean, he got, was it 25 for that last time out?
Yeah.
I was saying, I talk with my dad almost every morning. I was like, you think he gets 75, maybe even 100? Because I mean, if I show up, everybody else comes to the party. If I'm here, everybody else is coming. But if you don't get him, what's the point? So
at some point, though, it's not profitable.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, but the way you guys talk about Iron Man, it's like, how much is it worth to you, kid?
He's the GOAT.
I also think this report dives into whether or not they have $75 to $100 million to spend on him, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we also have to keep in mind that $25 million was for Iron Man 3, which was a decade ago. That was before Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. He made $75 million for Infinity War and Endgame because they shot back to back. Like that's the price tag that comes with Robert Downey Jr. The price tag is going to get even higher when he wins Best Supporting Actor next March. Beyond that, though, this frustrates me. Brandon, I know you're a pro wrestling fan, and I know we talk about building new stars, right? The MCU needs to rely on the future stars. You can't just have the nostalgia pops come in for one time and have a paycheck and just have one cool moment. Bringing back RDJ and Scarlett Johansson, I like the idea as a fan, but how sustainable is that for building the MCU for years and years to come?
I mean, you talk about that. I mean, you look at what Roman Reigns is doing in WWE. That's a perfect example. Everybody says they're tired of him, but he's made stars out of everyone else. He's made Sami Zayn a star. He's made all these other people that everybody. Jey Uso is main event Jey Uso now because of his feud with Roman Reigns. All these people who have gotten in the ring to go against the best have been put all the way over the moon because they're in there. So what they could do if this is going to happen is put some of these new characters in there with Iron Man. Give, these other characters more eyeballs by having whatever time this John Cena run that he's doing on SmackDown every week. I'm shocked that Peacemaker is in the ring as much as he is, especially at his age and with the career he has outside of wrestling. He's in there making stars as well. Austin Theory is going over the moon because he's had a feud with everybody, all the biggest names of all time. So I think that if you want to make a wrestling comparison, there's a way to use these characters to make stars of other characters. Now, that's not to say these characters can't become stars on their own. Like, I do think that you have Shang-Chi is out here, one of my favorite character in the MCU right now. And, you still have Thor and, Captain Marvel is going to be popular. Captain Marvel has to fight other battles, unfortunately. But Captain Marvel and She-Hulk and all these characters, these new Moon Knight, these new characters are able to grow on their own, on their individual merits. But I think there's no debate if you get the biggest audience and you tell a really good story with them there. Scarlet Witch popped off and never had a movie. So that WandaVision came along and really sent her to the moon. But Scarlet Witch was a supporting character to start off with, surrounded by the biggest hitters. I don't know. I'd be down for them to return. I'm not even shy about it. I hope it's done well. If it does happen, I obviously would be there day one.
I do think we also have to acknowledge this would be a Secret War situation, most likely. I feel like the report is not lying, like it's not necessarily insinuating they're going to like resurrect the versions of these characters we know. If anything, I feel like it would be something multiversal.
They did say revive though, like that was the wording used, and that
might have just been their assumption. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be metaphorical, like revive the characters as different variants or whatever. But yeah, to me, this report specifically read like a in case of emergency break glass situation. It didn't feel like there's a story to be told. It could be fun. It feels like there's panic everywhere. let's go to old reliable, the ones we know.
I do think there is a path that isn't inorganic to get them all back before Secret Wars. It's just you don't make Kang Dynasty about Kang anymore. You make it Avengers Forever, which is what some real deep, at this point, MCU throwback stuff. Remember when we thought the title of Endgame was going to be Avengers Forever? Remember that?
Could you
remember that? Yeah, there you go, Liam. Show the people. Put him on the big screen. Yeah, we could just do that.
If anybody, Avengers Forever is a story that sees the Avengers and different heroes split into different groups to go to different timelines, much like what happened in Endgame, to go try to, well, they're trying to save somebody from being killed, basically, but I don't know that they'll adapt. I think a version of that could very well be coming. I would like to see that. And I would like to, I mean, listen, there's ways to bring them back. And it is interesting that they use the word revive, because I could take that to mean like, yes, bring them back from the dead. But I could also see it as like, we're reviving the franchise, you know, and that is kind of a reboot. So I think that is a little ambiguous. But they got another problem already facing them right now that they got to figure out.
Yeah, so this article dives into the Jonathan Majors of it all and whether or not he will continue to play Kang in the future. There is a quote from a top deal maker who has seen the final episode of Loki who says, Marvel is truly effed with the whole Kang angle, and they haven't had an opportunity to rewrite until very recently because of the WGA strike, but I don't see a path on how they move forward with him. A studio source in the report notes that regardless of the actor's legal issues, Marvel has already considered moving away from a major-led phase because of the box office performance of Quantumania, which will struggle to make a profit. Quote, it gave people pause that given that Quantumania didn't exactly land. And apparently Marvel executives had a summit where they discussed backup plans in the scenario, which could include pivoting to another villain altogether, including Doctor Doom. So I have a lot of feelings about this. I have privately thought that maybe we could pivot to Doctor Doom if the situation like presented itself. So if we go down that path, I will definitely be happy. But how do we feel about this?
I mean, I think they have done the wait and see for so long now that they just have to wait and see what happens in court. I also find it interesting that the report notes that Majors' team has a couple documents that they're really trying to not let the public get. I think that if those see the light of day and there's a reason why they don't want those out there, it's going to be very informative on how Marvel's going to make their decisions. But Marvel has dealt with jumping the gun in the past. So I think that wait and see was the right play, but I think ultimately the decision is going to come down to what happens. Like, I don't think Jonathan Majors is affecting viewership on Loki.
It's not.
You know, I barely see that conversation. I don't think the Jonathan Majors of it all is affecting viewership, and that's, I think, because a lot of us just don't know. At minimum, if Majors is guilty or innocent, I can't say. I don't know, but that team has done a good job of making me feel like I don't know. And I'm just watching Loki. And I'm going to wait and see what happens in court.
I will say at this point, it seems like if there is a point to recast or pivot, this might be the place to do it. Because I know we've had so many theories on the show and off of where Kang could show up after Loki season 2. And so I feel like because none of those things are really filmed to our knowledge, and because of the strikes and everything, this might be the opportunity to take this and not just keep waiting and see ad nauseum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they move on without him. If they move away from him. Magazine Dreams being dropped from Disney's schedule, it seems like there's enough for them to be like, well, maybe this is not our $1 billion franchise guy.
5-minute standing ovation at Venice Film Festival, and we don't know when it's coming out. Mm-hmm. Like, you had multiple people saying that he was going to be in line for some awards season love off of that movie, and it's just, we don't know. So I don't know. BD, I'll let Liam go, but read the question I have. I can't say it out loud.
Yeah, I wrote, yeah, go for it, man.
Oh, well, we talked to Ryan Coogler around Wakanda Forever, and I asked him directly about Dr. Doom, and he said that was never the plan. That was never what happened. All those rumors about him being in one of the post-credit scenes, that wasn't a thing. So either my man is just as good at lying as he is at doing bicep curls, or like, that was never the plan. I don't know.
No, I don't think Doom was ever in Black Panther. I do believe that. I mean, maybe I think they talk about all the characters at some point, but I know we've all seen like the concept art leaks and that are allegedly leaked on Twitter and all that stuff. But I believe that Coogler probably really appreciates Doom as a character, and maybe they've had a conversation. But I think the same way Nova was going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy, like Nicole Perlman had Nova in the draft of the script before it even made it to James Gunn. And James Gunn never had a draft of the script that had Nova in it. So Doom, and I think Doom probably has been brought up many times since they got those characters back. It'd be crazy not to be like, well, how do we, maybe plant this seed or bring this character in? But I think maybe I think it'd be an interesting pivot into Doom now, though.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree with what's been said. It's a wait and see approach, and we've made it this far. We might as well get like a final verdict. I would be most upset if they pivot away from Kang as a character entirely just because of Jonathan Majors. Like, this is such a rich persona to bring to the big screen, and we've barely even scratched the surface with him. I've always been a proponent of making a high evolutionary variant, a Kang down the line. I think Chikwoody would be amazing in that role. He brought that like sinister narcissist to the screen so well in Guardians 3. I think wait and see is the best way to go about it, but I would be really bummed if we just scrap Kang entirely, because this is a character based off variants. There are millions of possibilities. There's built-in pivots like to be made. So I guess we'll just wait and see.
And we played by Terrence Howard.
Can I say one thing from like Maud and Eric over at Yield, the Break Room, and New Rockstars? They said, wouldn't it be a cool idea to like have different actors play the variants, like different cool actors for every movie? And I was like, now if you're not gonna do Majors, that would be cool too. I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
There was
that also in a hypothetical scenario would allow you to like double shoot Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars
sure
a
would.
lot better. So I do like, I've never heard that idea, but I do like that.
There's a movie Charlie Ridgely from Comic Book told me to check out called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. I have not watched it, but Heath Ledger was playing the main character when he passed away. And then I think my understanding is it's kind of like a multiverse story, but instead of recasting him as one person, they had Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell. This is all coming from Charlie. I haven't seen the movie, but they would play the kind of different versions of the character. And that would be interesting to see a bunch of different actors play Kang throughout the multiverse. And I mean, they're already having different actors play different characters. We're going to have, well, never mind.
Woo! Brandon! BD. So who's next? Is it me?
Cut the mic. Yeah, Aaron, keep going.
Hi, welcome back to Phase Zero. I'm Aaron. So this is the Marvels section of the Variety Report now. We're talking about it having 4 weeks of reshoots, which, by the way, is framed like it's a big deal. I feel like most of these things have at least 4 weeks of reshoots. I've heard so many different. Doctor Strange had at least 3. Like, I'm trying to think. There's some reshoots on Panther because of the pandemic. If you read Joanna's book, which, by the way, go back and watch our interview with her, they reshot half of Falcon Winter Soldier once the pandemic hit. So there are some different things in the winds about the Marvels. Does that worry anybody that they had reshoots?
It doesn't bother me. I also, because the report argues like, oh, Nia DaCosta was involved with another movie
London,
like in London while this post-production was happening. I don't blame her for that, because I feel like these movies are having increasingly longer productions, and I do think like that's not necessarily her fault. But I feel like this is a normal amount of reshoots. I feel like we have this with every single movie at this point, and it always sounds much more dire than it actually is.
I think it's weird that she wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think it's undeniably weird the director was not there to finish the movie. Now, that said, I recognize Marvel is a machine unlike any other movie franchise, so they may very well have pushed her out. Maybe she said, I'm done with this. Maybe they said, hey, we got it from here. So it's hard to, that's all speculation. But in either scenario, whether it's Marvel's choice or the director's choice, it to me, it's kind of crazy that you would let a movie be finished, or you would finish a movie without the director or your final vision. Does it concern me? I think this sort of stuff has happened often. I know it happened pretty substantially on one of the Venom movies, and that's one of my least favorite Marvel movies ever. But I know it's happened on other Marvel projects as well that have turned out to be quite good. So on this one, it's like, well, we hear it all the time, how directors and writers get kind of shuffled and moved around in this machine because it's such a big franchise that's why I think Marvel has so few misses. They have the money and they have the time and the means to go down to the wire to fix it until release day. And I think that the directors become kind of a placeholder in some cases. And that sucks. In some cases, it sucks. In some cases, the movie ends up being good and they get to say, well, yeah, I made an awesome movie. But it's a different type of collaboration, it seems, over there.
Yeah, reshoots are built into the schedule. It's really nothing new. 4 weeks also just doesn't seem like a giant time span to me. Like that's what most movies are. What about a 3 to 4 month shoot? We're talking about maybe fine tuning an act's worth of an entire film. I am bothered by the fact that she wasn't involved in post production. Again, we are on the outside looking in. This could have been transparently communicated before she signed on to the project that, hey, I got this other thing I'm doing and I'm not going to be around. But the Variety report, once again, it makes it seem like that was not communicated and that she was kind of MIA. Who knows? Marvel movies are essentially made by committee. We've seen what happens in the past with other directors. They're just kind of like the label on it. And Kevin Feige comes in and he polishes everything. Marvel's is a wait and see. I haven't been wowed by the trailers. I don't hate the trailers. I think it's going to be a fun, all right time at the movies. But anyone who's clinging to 4 weeks of reshoots as a sign it's going to be bad clearly just doesn't pay attention to Marvel production schedules, because this has been going on for well over a decade.
Stay through the credits. I do one thing I want to say is Nia DaCosta went to go work on a film with Tessa Thompson. An important piece of information for a conversation coming up after our break, but we'll keep moving.
Well, I guess we can talk about some pre-production woes then, since we were just talking about post-production. Blade, the movie that might be in the works, might not be, might actually come out, might never come out. Basically, we've been recycling a lot of talking points about this movie over the past number of years now. It's crazy that this thing was announced back at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019. Michael Green, who penned Logan and Blade Runner 2049, is being brought in for the newest rewrites. This thing has gone through multiple scripts, multiple directors over the past couple of years. The quote specifically from Variety says, the project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. One person familiar with the script, Permutations, says the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead. A bizarre idea considering that the studio had 2-time Oscar winner Mahershala Ali on board. And Mahershala Ali was apparently ready to exit the project altogether because of the script issues. I'm glad that they don't want to put something forward that they are not confident in, but at the same time, it's getting ridiculous, as DeMarcus Cousins said in that one post-game interview. But also, if you like The Flash, The Flash went through the same stuff, and I wasn't crazy about it, but that seems to be universally okay by most people's standards. And The Flash went through 800 writers and 25 different directors. So does this change your confidence levels whatsoever on Blade? Jenna, we can start with you.
I think that this, for me, this ties back to the TV conversation that we had a couple weeks ago of kind of making pilots and having an idea for a show before you move forward with the show. I feel like Blade kind of became a movie that shows why you need to do that. I think having Mahershala attached is a great idea, but I think they clearly have not been able to crack the story. Otherwise, we would be seeing trailers or at least the finished movie by now. So I find this fascinating. I can't wait to eventually hear the full rundown of every iteration of this movie and what it all entailed. I hope we can see it at some point. The other detail of this that's interesting is that they said that they might shoot this for a less than $100 million budget, which is kind of crazy considering the Marvel ecosystem. So I don't know if we're going to get this, what shape it'll look like, but that at least is interesting to me.
If it does indeed come in under 100 mil, and it does crazy, you can say goodbye to the $200 million Marvel feature, which is kind of not amazing for other stories, but would be good for them, I'm sure. Also, making Blade Fury Road sounds amazing, and I want to know what that movie looked like, honestly, because when I read that, I'm like, oh, so Mad Max Fury Road, awesome,
yeah.
Sick. But that, of course, somewhere Adam's like, no. Vampires. He's supposed to be killing vampires. He's supposed to be killing Draculas. So we'll figure out what's going on. The cast is amazing.
If that cast is even attached,
making the script, the cast,
we don't know what iteration what script iteration that cast was even attached for. I don't know who's in this movie other than Mahershala Ali at this point.
Isn't Nia Goth the bad guy?
Maybe, but that might have been 2 scripts ago. We have no idea.
I hope they keep old girl. If nothing else, I remember you and Jamie being so excited.
No, it would be great if it happened, but I don't have faith that it's actually going to happen.
Okay, all right.
I think Mahershala stays on Blade and the movie comes out in 25 or 26.
I'm still holding on for my phase 0 bet with Brandon Davis. It'll come out before Batman, The Brave and the Bold, or Superman Legacy. I'm still holding out hope for that.
And the last bit from this report is that Marvel is indeed meeting with potential X-Men writers. We had this reported earlier. It's another confirmation that Marvel is trying to bring the X-Men into the MCU. They're taking the steps, and actually, the X-Men are definitely closer to the MCU than we might have thought. I won't say definitely, but I will. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Subscribe. Welcome back to Phase Zero, Season 3, Episode 44. That was a chunky first chunk of the show, and we haven't even talked about X-Men yet. The X-Men, closer to the MCU than we think, I think. The Marvel's promo has a couple interesting things in here recently. First of all, the Marvel's promos are really going all in to try to get people to see this movie, which you got to do. That's props to marketing. They're trying to sell tickets. There's a lot of movies I wish could get pushed like this. It's getting a good push. They're using the Endgame footage, and then now they're revealing a line of dialogue, which is very interesting. Monica says, another reality is bleeding into ours. I might have jumbled the words a little bit, but that's what the line means. Another reality is bleeding into ours. Okay, so this is a bit of a multiverse story. It's the multiverse saga, after all. That line would indicate. But then, shout out to the MCU Direct for catching this, or maybe they weren't the ones who caught it, but I saw it on their feed. In the promo, like the narrator of the promo, the trailer says, brace yourself for what's next. And when what's next is written on the screen, it fades away. And the only letter it leaves there for a moment is an X. Bum, bum, bum. So I'm thinking maybe the X-Men have a role in the Marvels.
I mean, that would explain 4 weeks. That would explain 4 weeks right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
This movie's already so short that I feel like if we are to get anything, I think it will be very small, because there is already so much that this movie is juggling before you even fold any of that into it.
That's true. There's a lot going on. 3 main characters.
Yeah.
I'm also glad that it's this minuscule of a tease. Like, you really had to look to see what's next, and then the X is on screen for like half a second, because like Jenna said, if they are involved, if there's any type of X-Men involved, I do think it would be a post-credit scene, because how are you going to rework the narrative? Like, post-credit scenes can be completely detached from the movie's story. And I just hope that the marketing right now is perfect. Don't ever get into the Venom 2 scenario of come see the post-credit scene and it also comes with a free movie too. Like, I never want to get into that status with the MCU. So right now it's good. Keep doing what you're doing. It's working clearly. Marvel's was tracking for what? 40 million opening weekend. Now it's up to 75, 80. So
Elvis 198 in the comments on YouTube. Hi, thanks for watching. Says that Kamala is a mutant. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's true. That's really true.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's true. That's very true. Maybe she's going to school somewhere. Who knows? At some point. Other thing I want to talk about while we're on the Marvels before we move on to Deadpool 3 Nia DaCosta went and filmed a movie with Tessa Thompson. I mentioned that was going to come back around. Here we are, full circle. The Bifrost is in the trailers, and we hear Carol say she called a friend. I mean, who's it gonna be?
I don't want to say again because I got yelled at in the comments for talking about this a couple weeks ago, but I still stand by my theory. There's no way it's not her.
Valkyrie is in this movie, right?
It's totally her. Do you remember the costume set picture? Like it was in like the makeup room, and if you like zoom and enhance, one of like the stills in the background was like like it was a Valkyrie suit. This is years ago. We're talking when it was first being filmed. But yeah, no, Valkyrie's been like subtly attached to this movie for a while. And the Bifrost, yeah, that to me confirms it.
How is the Bifrost even working right now?
Well, Thor can activate it with Stormbreaker on the front of the ship. That's what
technically Thor would send her, be like, I'm not going to help, but you go.
Listen, we're having a bad day making pancakes with love. You go in my stead. That's how that works.
Well, the Marvels, we have a bonus episode on November 10th coming to Phase Zero. That'll be full spoilers, full reviews, full breakdown. And that'll be live on the YouTube channel, and that'll be available on all major podcast platforms. Hope to see you there. And probably about a year from now, we'll be talking about this next movie in a bonus episode.
Maybe, even if
yeah.
So Sean Levy is continuing to talk a lot about Deadpool 3. So he was on Happy, Sad, Confused and offered a lot of details about the movie. He said, to start off the quotes, "I'm so wary of giving anything away because I've learned the hard way that even with a few titles, like any Marvel title, and everything and anything you can say can lead to not only rumors but misinformation. I'll just say this, it is very much part of the MCU. What a privilege, what a wealth of resources and knowledge." I love how he says that, and yet we are going to pick apart every single word that this man is saying. His second quote is, he says, "I'm going to say this, it has a F load more of heart than you think. One thing Ryan and I were really united in was wanting to make Deadpool 3 very much consistent and continuous with the franchise DNA, but to see where we could evolve it in this third movie." His third quote says, "What blew my mind is how easy some of those cameos have been. People love Deadpool. People love Ryan. Thankfully, people also seem to like my work. They know Ryan and I are in the groove of a creative brotherhood that is unique and seems to be working." And then he said on the Taylor Swift as Dazzler of it all, he said, "That sounds like a great idea. Also, Deadline is reporting that Deadpool 3 is looking at January 2024 to theoretically resume filming." Of course, this is all contingent on the SAG strike. So there's a lot to unpack here. I like that he said the evolving the franchise and adding a little bit more heart, because for me, Deadpool 2 is a lot more cynical than I would have wanted it to be. So I like that detail. But how do you guys feel about this?
I like what Sean Levy does with characters. The Adam Project specifically, I thought had really great heart, and even Free Guy was a ton of fun. I don't know that had the kind of heart that it sounds like he's talking about here, but the Adam Project, in my opinion, did. So I like it. I also think the cameos quote is really interesting because it sounds like it's going to be loaded with them. If he says some of these cameos were easy, indicating there were even more that might not have been. Like, how many people are showing up in this movie? But and nobody can escape talking about Taylor Swift. I feel like at this point, like the press tour, whether she's in the movie or not, is going to be talking about her.
Mm-hmm.
When you see Brandon Davis singing Taylor Swift songs with Sean Levy on the press junket for this, don't be surprised, everybody. That's what we do. It sounds really like positive and very like just like an environment that everybody really wants to be around. And I think that I severely, and maybe some other people severely, underestimate how much people just like Ryan Reynolds, because like a lot of these actors don't like saying yes to this stuff because they have to come back and do all this stuff over and over again. But if he asks you, you're like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, let's show up. Why not? Let's do it. So I guess we all win for that. Although January 2024 is still cutting it real close, right? Like it's still real close to the end of the year. So hopefully they can get it done. Hopefully we get out of this thing, out of this hell that we built for ourselves. This is bad.
I'll tell you, there are so few actors that when I interviewed them, I walked away and thought they hated me. Like genuinely thought they like hated me. And Ryan Reynolds, the first time I interviewed Ryan Reynolds, when I left that room, I was like, that man hates me. That was like my least favorite interview of my entire life. But we have since, he's cool as hell. Me and
you squashed your beef.
I was wrong. Ryan is great. I was just a bad interviewer at the time. But No, and I don't think he even hated me, but I walked out of that room and I was like, man, Ryan Reynolds hates me, man. I don't know if I should do this job anymore. But no, now I know Ryan is cool.
I will say to Aaron's point about just how likable Ryan is and how like reflective that is in the industry. This morning he got Grant Gustin to make flash jokes in a commercial. So anything is possible with this man. I feel like the cameos that could, like we've talked about this ad nauseum, but I feel like that whole murder board of possible cameos that leaked a couple months ago, I'm not expecting all of them to be in the movie, but I feel like we're still going to get surprised in one way or another.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this movie just looks like a fun time. Like it just looks like all the set pictures we've seen, all the quotes we've seen. Like Hugh Jackman very famously was like, "That's my swan song. Everything's perfect," and he's having a great time. Very clearly, whenever he's spotted at football games with Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds. Beyond that, too, the January 2024 might be a little ambitious, but something that I cling on to in terms of hope that this thing does meet a 2024 release date is it's been in post-production this entire time. Like whatever they shot over the summer has been polished throughout the rest of this year. So when they eventually do get back to shooting, they have a lot more work that was supposed to be on the back end now completely done. I am like 99% confident on that. And also, too, with the past couple of weeks, they now have the writers back to refine the script a little bit more. Not that they really need to, but this movie has clearly a ton of improv. There's now room to polish. So even if the main part, the main meat of it, the shooting, isn't getting done for the time being, the other 2/3 of it are, and that gives me a lot of hope.
I just hope this movie arrives and it is as awesome as we want it to be. I feel like for Hugh Jackman, he's got to stay in incredible shape to play Wolverine this whole time. Like he might have thought they were going back in September and then in October and then in November and now hopefully January. This man has to maintain that Wolverine shape. That's tough, man.
He can't even look at a donut until like production is over. I feel so bad for him.
Ooh, goodness. All right, we're gonna take one more quick break. When we come back, we have to talk about Daredevil Born Again. A little bit about Loki and the MCU timeline. It's making amends. See you in a moment. Welcome back to Phase Zero. This is a chunky show, and I got to applaud us hosts here. We're doing a great job of keeping the pace. We got about 15 minutes left here, and we have about 15 minutes worth of stuff to talk about, and it's all good stuff. Daredevil Born Again found its filmmakers. Dario Scartapane? Dario from The Punisher is the showrunner on Daredevil Born Again. So that's cool. We know John Bernthal's coming back. I think we know that. John Bernthal, while he is back, he's going to be the Punisher again. And now one of his producers is the showrunner on Daredevil Born Again. And Moon Knight directors and Loki directors, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, are directing the remaining episodes of Daredevil Born Again. And I assume whatever reshoots for those episodes that are already shot. So I think that's an absolute win. I see that as a win for the Loki finale. That's a sign of confidence in these next two episodes of Loki because they directed these episodes. They also directed Moon Knight, which honestly, I think the finale is one of the weaker episodes. I didn't need the big kaiju fight, but I really enjoyed most of Moon Knight and what they did there. and I've enjoyed episodes 1 and 4 of Loki tremendously. So I think Benson and Moorhead they feel like almost like the Russo brothers of Disney Plus now. Like they found their duo that they like, and they're working with them, and that's what Marvel likes to do. So they don't quite have their Winter Soldier yet, I'd say. Maybe they're doing it with Loki season 2, but yeah, interesting Daredevil updates.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Benson and Moorhead, just like their ability to adapt with these different projects, because, the Russo brothers, there was like a very clear, like, upwards trajectory of like, okay, Winter Soldier worked with the main guy Cap, had Black Widow in there too, and then Civil War got all the pieces, and then more and more and more. They're kind of going like left, right, center, like with like Moon Knight to Loki to Daredevil. These are 3 very different characters. But to me, so far, they've delivered all satisfactory products. I don't love Moon Knight, but I liked it enough. I really like Loki season 2 right now. And Daredevil, I have a lot of hope for, especially now that they're refining what they want it to be. And it's actually clear with Feige's vision. So stamp of approval on my end for Benson and Moorhead.
I'm just happy that we have people to see this over the finish line. Like, after all of the reports that came out, I think like finding people, it was going to be hard to fill these shoes anyway, but I think what we're getting is going to be really good. I think I'm not super familiar with Dario's work, but it seems like having the Punisher, Jack Ryan kind of vibe might help the tone that they're looking for. And I have liked what Benson and Moorhead have done. I think that they've done some really cool stylistic things, especially with Loki. So I think they'll find some ways to surprise us with Daredevil. It might not be another one-track hallway fight, but they might do something cool.
He's technically the first showrunner for Marvel Studios. First showrunner for
that is
Kevin
true,
Feige.
yeah.
And
yeah.
It's like, because Marvel TV and Marvel Studios they did not work together.
No.
Marvel Studios basically said, you can't use our characters, and then occasionally would concede. They were on opposite sides of the Disney lot, and they really didn't collab. Marvel TV, I think, wanted to work with them more than they got to. But this is the first showrunner now, because Marvel TV had showrunners, but Marvel Studios has not. So that's interesting. Aaron, you want to weigh in on this before we move on? I just want to make sure we give everyone a chance.
Happy for the Daredevil fans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am giggling a little bit in the comments where everybody's like, oh, it's like saved and put on track. I'm like, we haven't seen any of it.
No.
Like, we haven't seen a thing. Okay. Like, good. Keep working on making it whatever you guys want to make it. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Liam, you talked to Loki's cinematographer, Isaac Bowman, and there's one part I want to hear about, because he's you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I asked him about, the final episodes without getting into spoilers, just like the vibe on set, specifically because Loki season 1, that final shot, like, I remember where I was. Like, I remember the feeling and everything. I remember the feverish anticipation for what comes next. So I asked him, without getting into spoilers, what was that final day like on set? And he said, we shot the climactic sequence of the season, at least a major piece of it, on a single day on a soundstage near the very end of our shoot. I think it was probably the most meaningful day of the entire production, because you could just feel the weight of the story, Loki's story, which has gone on for so long, closing this chapter at least. And then he goes on to say, it felt like once we finished shooting the sequence, we as a crew, as creatives, we have now contributed a very significant chapter in the story of one of the greatest characters of our generation. And so, like, the way he says that, it gives a little bit of permanence to Loki season 2. I highly doubt this is where we say goodbye to Tom Hiddleston. But it sounds like this is a very, like he said, significant chapter. And the fact that he gives it the label of the most meaningful day on set, like that was an extensive shoot. Like, there's 6 hours of product that you're shooting, and that specific last day was the one that took the cake. It gets me very, very excited for the finale. And he also said, I asked him if he agrees with the other creatives that are saying 5 and 6 are by far the best episodes of the season. And he said 100% he agrees.
Man, I was worried after how good episode 4 was that the show had peaked in episode 4, but this does bring a smile to my face.
I feel like we definitely aren't saying goodbye to Loki as a character. I would be shocked if that ends up being the ending. But I think it was Kevin Wright who had said, like, they've always conceived the show as a 2-seasons show. So it seems like whatever endgame we end up on in episode 6 is something that is going to be definitive in one way or another. And so that is very interesting.
I wish they hadn't released that damn trailer though.
I have not watched it. Aaron and I were talking before the show. I have not watched it, and I'm pretty sure Jamie has not either. I am just going to, I
No.
want to fly blind.
No,
No, don't
I
watch
feel like
that.
I just
Don't
watched the episodes.
I know, so that's exactly why I'm like, I am avoiding this like the plague. I'm so glad we didn't talk about it today, because I would have just had to have like exited out.
Yeah, it's tricky because I had to do a video on it, so I had to watch it, and then we come on here and it's like, do we talk about that because it's out there? But I feel like most of our listeners and viewers don't want that sort of spoiler. Like if it was just a trailer for something, even just the next episode, normally if it didn't end on such a cliffhanger, this trailer felt like it really just gave a lot away. I mean, I don't know how it's all gonna go, but I know a lot of what happens after the cliffhanger now. I'm like, well, damn. I also know the MCU timeline is making some changes. First of all, the 8 years later moment that made us all go, what the heck, in Spider-Man Homecoming. Great Spider-Man film. I don't care what anybody has to say. The MCU timeline book uses Miss Minutes to acknowledge that is a mistake and kind of retcon it. In a quote from Miss Minutes, red line alert, hi again. Adrian Toombs says the Battle of New York was 8 years ago, but that event was only 4 years ago. This one's a real head scratcher for us. I reckon an analyst misplaced the case file. So nice little way to do it, tongue in cheek. Stay meta with it, stay kind of canon and fix it. But that was such a stupid. That's like that first Sony and Marvel collaboration had to come with one of the most ridiculous little weird moments. I don't know how that made it through, but it did. I think we have far by now eclipsed those 8 years in 2023, but the MCU took a while to get there. So that was interesting. Also, Shang-Chi is officially set after WandaVision and before the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think that's probably a product of COVID changing release dates and schedules and stuff. And the MCU timeline book says, here we go, this is going to be a hot one. The Scarlet Witch is dead. According to this book, Wanda Maximoff perished. Oh no, Thor, I'm perishing. At the end of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So there's a quote about it, but the quote doesn't say she's dead, she died. It just says it ends the chapter, whatever it said. But here's the thing. I see Jen is ready to hop on this and say she's not dead. There's a little flower.
There's a flower icon.
There's a little flower icon on the pages to indicate a character died.
Not just character died, major character death.
Yes, and that flower is on that page. So maybe she's under the dumpster, just like Glenn. But they want us to believe that her name is no longer in the credits, and the In Memoriam segment should feature Scarlet Witch. Walking Dead fans get that one. But Jenna, I go, dude.
In Jamie's stead, with Jamie not here, I have to preach the gospel. It's comics. Nobody really ever dies in the comics. I feel like also the way that it is worded, it said something of like eliminating the threat. It did not specifically say that she herself died. I think they want people to believe that for the time being, but also I will say, because like looping back around to the Homecoming thing and all of that, it's cute that this book exists. I'm glad that this book exists, but I feel like there are going to be so many viewers who are not even going to know that this book exists, and so I think it's nice to have this extra ephemera, but if it isn't necessarily reflected on screen, then I don't know, it doesn't necessarily make that much of a difference. So I think that there is more than enough of an avenue to bring her back if the situation presents itself, which I think it will. It just is a matter of Lizzie Olsen wanting to, but I don't know. I also do want to acknowledge the events of WandaVision are happening right now, because people pointed out that the Halloween episode technically happened yesterday. So
wow,
yeah.
That's I didn't even think about that. I'm usually on that. That's interesting. On your point about Spider-Man and the people not knowing this book exists and it all should just happen, I agree. These things need to happen on screen. They need to be clearly laid out. It's nice for us, for the people who do pay this much attention, it is nice that we get this book. We get to kind of get it sorted out, and the hardcore fans get to kind of have their, opportunity to see what is officially the rules and the facts and the history and the canon. But I think this goes back to two things. One is the thing we've talked about on this show, which is like you only get to watch this for the first time once, so make the Statue of Liberty the correct color. And the report this morning, which just go to show that the Marvel got spread a little thin, and we started to see things not connect and be a little more confusing in Phase 4 and Phase 5. And I think that this pivot, these changes they're making that we talked about this morning, and we've been talking about many times over, but in detail today after that report from Variety, show that Kevin Feige is trying to right this ship and make the best products, and I really appreciate they're doing that.
Yeah, I've always been of the belief if you don't see a body, they're not dead. And even if they're saying that she's like canonically dead, I think the fact that we didn't see a body means she will be resurrected at some point when eventually we do get Young Avengers, Children's Crusade. It's going to happen. And yeah, we have not seen the last of Scarlet Witch, even if Earth 616 is considered to be dead.
She'll be back.
That's why it was so funny when I wrote this. I was like, well, that's great. But also, we all know, like, if you go on Twitter or you go on any social media, Wanda's probably in the top 5 of popularity in MCU characters now. You think they're not going to market to us and have her reunite with those boys? Mm-hmm. You think there's not going to be a scene where Julian Hilliard, with a goatee, isn't like hugging her when they finally make Secret Wars because it'll be that long? He's grown. Hi, Julian. I know you watch the show. It's just, okay, like, fine. And also, all it's going to do is what BD's talking about. We're arguing about it right now. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to do anything. It's not like we're going to open up on Deadpool 3 and it's like, so Wanda's dead, and that's the first line of it. That's never going to happen. So.
I will say this whole thing is giving when a letters column of a comic would like clarify something that the comic itself didn't dive into, but then nowhere else in the actual comic was that thing reflected. Like, it's nice that we have this back matter and this ephemera, but again, it has to be on screen for it to like actually matter. And even then they can retcon and reboot it a million times over.
What are the chances we see Scarlet Witch back as soon as Deadpool 3? Like variant version, Ian McKellen, Magneto, Scarlet Witch.
The cameos were easy.
Yeah.
The cameos were easy.
How close is Lizzie Olsen to Ryan Reynolds? Have they been spotted in a press box yet?
Man, Ryan Reynolds is friendly with everybody.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is friendly. I like this comment here from Eric Dion Cheney. 2023 is not Marvel's best year, but they're definitely turning things around next year. And the reason I like this comment is because if you feel that way, I get it. Like, I get that. I think people are feeling a little fatigued and a little frustrated, but especially with the news cycle surrounding Marvel, maybe even more than some of the content. We've gotten some good stuff this year. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Secret Invasion. Well, we can, there's no really, whatever. Quantumania was okay. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because they're going to end the year on a high note. They're going to, between Loki episodes 5 and 6, some of the stuff coming to the Marvels, and this, what's coming very soon. We got a bonus episode on Friday that I'm excited for, that I think a lot of people are going to actually be quite surprised. And I think the MCU is about to chalk up some big W's to end the year. And if the SAG strike is able to come to an end, if the studios will agree to fair deal, then that maybe, who knows, maybe they get back to filming and we get even more good news. But I think in terms of just in-universe stuff, actual content, not just news, there's a few W's coming before the end of the year, and I haven't even watched Werewolf by Night in color yet.
We missed that yesterday too.
It was like a week or so ago, I think.
Yeah, I know it's out, but we didn't even talk about it.
Yeah, no, I know Jamie has watched it. It seems like none of the rest of us have.
Well, it exists. It's fine. I'll watch it at some point. I thought Werewolf by Night was fantastic in black and white. Maybe it's still. I mean, I'm sure it's still great in color. I just haven't gone and watched it. I mean, we've been busy. Loki's been keeping me busy, and just a lot of things going on. But that's our show today, everybody. Look at that timing, 11:58 a.m. Central Time. We're right here on the button. Liam, any last words for today's show?
No, just thank you for having me on. I'm always honored to talk Marvel, especially on a day like today when there's a lot to do. And go out, support the Marvels when it comes to theaters. Keep watching Loki. And we're gonna end the year on a content heavy time because Percy Jackson comes out December 20th.
Oh, Jenna.
It's at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on social media. As always, go read some comics. If you liked hearing me rant about Scarlet Witch, the final issue of her run before it gets rebranded as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver is out this week, and it is very, very good. So go read that.
Nice. Aaron?
It's at Some Lake Corner on Twitter. Thank you guys for supporting. Drake John in the comments. We did watch Avengers Code Red Lego. You could go watch our bonus episode about that. That was last week. Also, I'm sad that I will be missing Loki episode 5 post show for you guys, but it's for a good reason. So Have fun tomorrow. I will be listening to it when I get in the car to come home from where I am to hear Jamie and Jenna just lose their minds. I cannot wait.
Yes.
We have to. We got to talk after the show. I mean, I gotta know what's going on. You know, I think people need to. People are gonna have to. You're gonna have to tune in to Phase Zero, people. You guys are gonna have to listen, and you are. Thank you so much for helping us set our yearly records week after week after week after week, and hopefully we can do that again this week. I think we're gonna have some really cool Phase Zero episodes this week and next week. And I'm excited about that. So subscribe to the Phase Zero channel on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify, on YouTube. Send our show to your mom. Play it for your dog. Anything to keep our audience growing, our community thriving, and chalking up dubs just like the MCU is in the next couple of weeks. Hope everybody had a good Halloween. Welcome to November. Let's finish the year strong. I don't know. I'm just rambling because I don't want the show to end up having so much fun today. Have a good one, everybody. See you tomorrow night for Loki.